Hi friends, Shudder is about to release the Creep tapes. This will kick off with 2 episodes on November the 15th, and then from there they'll be released weekly. I have already watched all 6 episodes ahead of time, and as a big fan of the original Creep movies, I have some thoughts. Let's chat about it today. I'm going to keep it spoiler free in terms of the Creep tapes series, but I will be talking about the movies, especially in comparison to the series. So just a heads up, there will be spoilers if you have not seen Creep 1 or Creep 2. I have to start off by giving a little bit of a refresh to the history of Creep to see how we got here. The first Creep was released in 2014. The found footage film is written by Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass. It's directed by Bryce, who plays the first victim in the film, Aaron, and then of course our Creep is played by Duplass. So they both came up with the concept together, they're in the film together, and Bryce directed. It was a short and sharp idea. We follow a cameraman who was lured into a woodside cabin by a stranger promising easy money in exchange for filming him for the day. But as soon as Aaron, our cameraman, arrives, it's obvious something is off. The man introduces himself as Joseph and claims that they'll be filming a video diary for his unborn child, which he may never have a chance to meet. Here's the thing about Creep. It really pushes the envelope, but also on a rewatch, I find it so much more entertaining knowing who Joseph is from the start. Obviously, we can catch on pretty quickly that he is full of it, but having this storyline about being filmed for his unborn child, you don't want to question it the first watch. So I feel like it works a lot better knowing how he is kind of seducing our victim into filming and that he is just erratic and nonsensical. The thing about our Creep Joseph is we never really know or understand who he actually is because he is a pathological liar and probably a psychopath. And the first film becomes just as much of Aaron's story as our Creep, as their time together becomes increasingly troubling, ending in a violent murder. The magic in this film is its simplicity. It is found footage the way it was intended, raw and improvised. The whole thing was filmed from a 5-page outline using improvised dialogue. And one moment I really loved when doing a rewatch was this shot. What the creators didn't realize at the time, and what we as the audience couldn't have realized, is that this would be the core of what will become the Creep tapes. This is the Creep tapes. This is what is turned into a series now when we see inside Joseph's hidden cabinet to everyone he has done this to in the past. Upon rewatching to refresh myself and get really back into the mode to see the Creep tapes, I was really surprised by how dark this film is. I watch a lot of disturbing stuff and I totally forgot everything that was connected to Peach Fuzz and what makes it such a weird, obscure and boundary pushing movie. The things he talks about with his make-believe wife, my God. Creep 2 was released 3 years later in 2017 and it starts with a bang. It doesn't have the same sinister, slow-ish, I say slow-ish because they are quite short films, but doesn't have the same kind of slow descent or unraveling. At this point, we're all aware of what this dude is capable of. But we do have Sarah, and she is the first vulnerable character that we see in this series that has an intent or purpose of putting herself in danger. They never have a good excuse to put themselves in danger, but we understand fully her intent. She has her own series called Encounters, where she attempts to meet strangers to make a human connection. Creep or Joseph goes by Aaron in this film, and that is a callback to the first film. He has stolen his victim's name. And we have a hard opening where he reveals to our new protagonist that he has killed 39 people and he's a serial killer. He says this point blank at the very start of the film. It's a hard launch, but she sticks around and she continues to challenge him. She's motivated by her show, which may be over if she doesn't make something interesting now, and this is her last ditch effort. She aims to put it all on the line for some captivating content. In this film, we learn more about Creep's lore, but Do we really believe anything he says? He explains that he is an amalgamation of all of his victims, which explains the name to a certain degree. The film still has the same feel as the first: erratic footage, disturbing moments, and wild turns. It's also a short feature that relies on its performance and simplicity, and this time has more of an open ending for both characters. So going into the Creep tapes, I was unsure of where our subject's antics would take him. And this series was a surprise to all Creep fans who had expected a trilogy to end the franchise, not a whole TV show. And unfortunately, I was not blown away by the result. But let me start off by saying our Creep has been booked and busy, and he has done his research on his new victims. Each episode is around 25 minutes and introduces a new, let's say, acquaintance, and each have a unique scenario to why they are filming. Although I didn't feel like there was a lot of variety in the victims themselves, none stood out like Sarah did. And with its short format, it felt less evolved than the films, like a step further away from a structured story. To be brutally honest, it felt like a web series that was more inspired by the moments of the movies that we love. It felt like more of a pitch for the character of Creep to make a movie. And with its short runtime, it does not adopt, or it can't adopt, the same spiraling descent into danger and the silence in the moments where we wait in between, the awkward silence. Creep is a creep. He is a real creep. And it doesn't play out when you give him a speed run from start to end with his time with his victims. I'm not sure why the formatting was done this way. It's really hard to let him do his thing, have his little meet cute with a new character, the realization they're in danger, and then also the cat and mouse game with a horror conclusion, all within 25 minutes. You gotta wrap it up. And then I felt like with this series, it seems like rinse and repeat. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the series for what it is because I love the character of Creep. It was still bizarre, disturbing, and twisted. It just didn't live up to the waiting for a final trilogy, an extra part of the story that I had hoped for. Creep 1 and Creep 2 are the same format, but their camera people challenge and interact with Creep in different ways. And this series just didn't have the same payoff as the films. The show did stay true to the same disturbing elements and shocking moments at its core. And with the cinematography, I loved they had a spotlight camera that paints a vignette on our subjects. And it also does have that same raw found footage silence. There's no added music or anything like that, but it was just so condensed. You couldn't really get into the characters. It's like a bite-sized version of Creep. I would say it's important to see the films first if you're gonna watch this series and you haven't seen the movies. The whole point of this series is its fanfare, and there is throwbacks to one-liners and different objects throughout the films. And at the end of the day, it is called the Creep tapes for a reason. It is delving into one section, as we talked about in the first film, where we see inside this little cupboard and we see this stash of Creep tapes. We're picking out these tapes at random, and that's all there is to it. I will say episode 5 and 6, the end of the series, do have a little bit of a different feel. I don't really know where they were going with it. It does feel very thrown together, original found footage, so I can't really complain because that's what I really liked about the initial concept. And I promise the end of episode 6, you will never be able to guess what happens, and it really disturbed me. I really liked that they went there and they crossed the boundaries. It's fresh. It's definitely fresh. It's something new. And it brings it back to the core idea of just being bizarre and going off script. But perhaps that's the whole point. Our beloved eccentric villain is played masterfully by Mark Duplass, and he keeps us constantly on the edge, but never giving us a true answer. At the end of the day, he is a pathological liar. So what did I expect from him in his home movies? The Creep tapes feels like a continuation of the strange and settling in-betweens that make the characters so intriguing. For fans of the film and the character, it's definitely worth a watch. However, I didn't find it as captivating as the features were. Every time the concept of a new episode played out and I was just getting into it, it felt like it was wrapping up. And I felt this was very much against the core of the Creep character, because the whole point of the films is he doesn't let people leave. He likes playing with people and prolonging them every time they try and have an escape plan. So for him to wrap it up real quick, it just wasn't within his nature. This film is just for fun, disturbing in-between moments, but if if you are a big fan of Mark Duplass, I would have to recommend a film that he co-wrote. Biosphere, you may have heard me talking about it before, but it's severely underrated. It is not horror at all, but if you're looking for some thought-provoking, newer Mark Duplass content, check it out. But horror-wise, I'm going to stick to the Creep films, and I am still patiently waiting, refreshing the IMDb page for Creep 3, hoping it will populate one day. And we'll finally get the end of our trilogy. I like to think of the Creep tapes as perhaps an appetizer. I wanted to give you guys a heads up going in, maybe to set some expectations, especially for big fans like I am, but always keen to hear your thoughts when you finish the series or when you've watched the first 2 episodes. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, let me know what other films you feel are very similar to Creep in its delivery with found footage. I'm always seeking those films out. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, I did put up a video of films I refuse to watch. Believe it or not, there are some films, and you can check that out here. I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.